Thank you. My name is Marty Schoch. I'm an employee at Couchbase. They're one of the many fine sponsors we've had at this conference. And they're also supporting the work at Bleve. So Bleve is a full-text indexing and search library written in Go. Now, why did we set out and build this? We've already got Elasticsearch, Solr, Lucene. These are all great products. I've used them. I love them. We've taken a lot of inspiration from them. But we wanted to see what we could do if we set out to build something in Go and bring some of our own ideas to the table, not do a straight port of these, but bring some new ideas to the table. And this is what we came up with. So first and foremost, it's a library. You're going to install it the way we like all of our Go libraries to be installed. We can use go get. And if we include the / at the end, that's also going to install some command line utilities as sort of a support for the project. So let's dive right in. Let's take a look at our first program that's actually going to put data into the index. And as you can see, it's only about 20 lines of code, so it's very easy to get started. Obviously, you're going to first import that top-level Bleve package. Once you've done that, Bleve works using reflection on your own data. So you need a data structure that you're interested in indexing. In this case, I've got a person structure with just a single field called name. Now, the next thing we need to do is create what we call an index mapping. And the index mapping is what describes how we take your data and stick it into the index. But luckily, we can just go ahead and use all the defaults to begin with. Next, we want to go ahead and create that new index. So we're going to use the new method. It takes two parameters. The first one is the path to the index. We're just going to call it people.bleve, and then a reference to the mapping we just created. So now we've got an index ready to go, and we can put data inside of it. So I'm going to create an instance of that person structure with my name, Marty Schoch, and then I'm going to use the index method to stick that data into the index. Again, two parameters. The first one is a unique identifier for that object, and then again, a reference to the object we just created. And we can go ahead and run this. And it's not going to print too much useful, but it's at least going to tell us that it got to the end, indexed the document. So we're expecting that to be in the index now. So again, 20 lines. We've got our index with the document in there. Now, it's only useful if we can open it up and query it and find that document. So here we go with a simple program. Again, about another 15 lines. We can now go ahead and run our first search. So we're going to open it, again, just giving a path back to that index. We're going to create a term query. Now, Bleve supports a variety of kinds of queries. We don't have time to go into too many of them today. The simplest one is a term query, which is just going to do an exact match for that term, Marty. So that's the query. We're now going to create something called a request. And I like to think of it as the query is what we're looking for, and the request is how we want those results returned to us. So this is where we would configure things like how many results per page, do we want to skip over any previous results. But again, we're just going to use the defaults here and create a brand new request. And now we use the search method to go ahead and execute that search. That's going to go ahead and give us either the results or an error, and we can run that. And again, that's going to match the document that we just put into the index. It had that identifier M1. That's kind of a raw ASCII thing. We'll see some prettier examples later. Now, as I mentioned, that was a term query, which is the bare, minimum, simplest kind of query you can run. And we don't have time to go into all of them today. But there's one other I'll mention, which is a more advanced query called a query string. And you're probably familiar with this from various other search sites that have some sort of simple syntax you can use to create more powerful queries. So I have a couple examples here. Here we have plus content : debugger. So the content : prefix is going to scope that particular term to a specific field, in this case, a content field. The plus is going to sort of make it a mandatory, so that's going to be a must clause in the query. And then the word count : greater than 30 is a numeric range, right? So if we have a field that has numeric values of the word counts, we can add that filter to it as well. The second example, you see if you put something in quotes, delve debugger, that's going to now do a phrase search. Go ~2, that's going to do a fuzzy search. And then the prefix minus, so say minus content : rust, that's going to specifically exclude documents that contain that term. You'll get a little sense of that when we see an example later. I also want to mention Bleve has some optional HTTP handlers. They're not required. You can use it in a completely embedded mode. But a lot of us build web apps, right? So this gives you an easy way to take that functionality and expose it over the web. And when I give these talks, I love to put together some sort of example that can sort of connect with the audience and make all this seem very real. So I was trying to find a good data set, and I thought, the GopherCon website's pretty cool. Let's see what we can do with that. So I've got a version of it running here. It's built with Hugo, so it's very easy to sort of just get the source on GitHub, pull it up on my machine. And I've made a couple minor modifications. So it should look very similar to what you see on the website. But in the upper right-hand corner, you notice I've added a little search box. So let's give that a try. I'll just type in Denver, if I can spell Denver right, on stage. Search for Denver, and then I'll scroll down to make that a little more visible. So here we see 6 results. We see the results being displayed here. It's got the title of the page, the author, the date it was created. Also, it's a little hard to see on the projector, but you notice inside the results, we're seeing a snippet of the original document there. And it's not just any snippet, it's the relevant snippet to what we searched for. And that's called out with a highlighted text. You notice Denver is highlighted in a slight shade of yellow there as well. On the right-hand side, we also have the scores for each. So this is a relevant score describing how relevant a particular document was to the match. And then on the right-hand side, we've got something called faceted search or faceted navigation. And you've probably seen this if you've searched on eBay or Amazon. You're familiar with this kind of search. So in addition to seeing the results, you see sort of categorical breakdowns on the side. That gives the user some sense of the population of documents that all matched, but it's also a navigation you can use to drill deeper into the results. So this search for Denver, again, it was 6 pages that matched, but you notice that 2 of them are of type schedule. So let's go ahead and just check that box. And what it's going to do is it's going to rerun the search with an additional filter on that type. And so now you notice we've scoped it down to just 2 documents, the July 7th and July 8th document. So again, this is just a quick example to kind of see how you could use Bleve to add search capabilities to your application. I'll jump back into the slides. At this point, a call for you to join the community. Search is something where we need a lot of users and developers to help us out. And we're growing. We've got about 10 or 12 contributors so far, and we'd love to have you join and help us with that. You can find us in IRC on the Bleve channel. We have a Google group that we use for a lot of the project discussions, figuring out how we're going to proceed forward. And of course, all the code's up on GitHub with an Apache 2 license. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you guys may have.